an AI guy. He knows a little bit about the AI world and the AI tech. He's got a company called Automations24 where he's helping businesses scale AI in giving them a competitive advantage. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about this, but I hope this is a great conversation about applying AI to our daily lives to make money. Paul,
That's right.
thanks for
That's right.
joining me,
Thanks,
brother.
Matt. Thanks for having me on, man. Love the show and appreciate your time here. Yeah, AI guy. I'm glad you didn't say expert or guru,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That I'm the furthest thing from an expert or guru, and this technology changes so freaking fast right now
yeah.
that I would doubt that anybody who says they're an expert or guru really is. But that's not discounting everybody out there. There's a lot of really super smart people out there doing a lot of cool things. But
For sure.
yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people that plays with artificial intelligence and in business, right? So, you mentioned Automations 24. It's essentially an automation organization, right? We play in the digital world in companies
Yeah.
and automate, right? Remove any kind of uh, discrepancies in the process that are wastes, essentially.
Paul, I want to talk a little bit about this because people say that AI is new technology, right? And I tend to disagree with people when they say AI is new technology. I think we're just in a new era of AI. Personally, I think AI has been around since the beginning of the industrial age, right? When we started assembly lines and processes and
Hmm.
stuff. But today we're in a new era of AI. What is your opinion of AI? What do you let's start with the big elephant in the room. When people come to you and they say AI is going to take my job, what do you say to those people?
I'd say it's a very real possibility. You should be interested in upskilling. I agree with you. AI, artificial intelligence, is absolutely nothing new. The way that we're using it is now I would consider revolutionary because of its capabilities. And it's nothing more than ones and zeros, and you still need human intervention. But where 20 years ago with RPA, robotic process automation, on an assembly line, right?
Yep.
We lost jobs, and the same thing now is occurring in the digital space for white collar workers, and it's a real thing. But it doesn't mean that you're not of any value, right? And it doesn't mean that AI is something that we should be humanizing, and because it's just a tool, right? And AI is really like a toolbox with a lot of different types of tools inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when people come to me and they say, "Should I be worried about my job?" It's like, well, if you aren't contributing, right, and you're not using your
Yeah.
brain, for sure. If you're processing information and data input, then you can think of a way to level up, right? Add
Yeah.
more value. But that's really a struggle that I think daily life gives you too. So
So let me
it's
ask you this, Paul. You talk a lot here. You've written a book. It's called Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine. I hear this term a lot. People trying to use AI to make money, right?
mhm,
Okay, and ultimately that's probably the goal. But I use AI every single day when I'm doing my show prep, when I'm doing my
mhm.
editing. Now of course, I don't have to hire a producer. I don't have to hire an assistant to go through and make all this stuff. I can just use AI. I use Claude quite a bit. I think
Okay.
Claude is really good for me, better than Chat GPT. But
Mhm.
when you say making money with AI and improving our cash flow, how are we doing that?
Well, it's process, right? It's simple. When you are doing what you do as an entrepreneur, as a business function, as a unit, a team, when you're doing what you do, it is primarily to drive revenue, right? All of us are trying to, if you're using it in business, it's productivity increasing, drive revenue. And AI is an interesting tool that you can utilize in the right processes, right? Not just anywhere, but in the right processes to shorten that time it takes to get revenue, right? And
Hmm.
shorten the amount of time you have to spend on certain processes or certain procedures
Yeah.
to simply get to the point where you're making revenue. I like to use a car salesman is a good example because they make the money when they shake the hand, right? There's all kinds of paperwork, there's information that needs to be exchanged, but really the return on investment comes when that hand is shook and the agreement is made, right? And that's what AI is supposed to do, get you closer to shaking the hand, right? And
Yeah.
whatever your industry is, right?
Yeah.
And so you know, I wrote the book for a specific reason to one, let everybody know in my own way that artificial intelligence is it's accessible to everybody,
Yeah.
right? And there are forms of artificial intelligence in particular that you can access that have been pre-trained, and there's a group of people out there that are a group of freaks, development freaks that aren't concerned with using AI to make money, but more or less concerned with dinking around with the tool, right? And
Yeah.
making the tool better. And they make these things available for you as a business owner for free to tailor to your business, right?
Hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, from a market perspective, everybody else is going to be doing it, right? Your competition is using it today. And if they're using it in a more efficient way, then you're in trouble, right? And so you have to remember that life isn't easy, right? And we need to take advantage of the tools that we're given to get where we want to get, right? So
Yeah.
AI is just one of those tools. It's not the end all be all.
Right.
We hear a lot about it today, and that gives, I think, people this overblown hype that
Yeah.
artificial intelligence is going to is a magic wand, and you can insert it in some part of a business, and it'll get it done. But it's not the case, right? It's
No.
really strategic implementation of it, and smart process adjustments, and also remembering that when 99.9% of people are doing something, you still have to differentiate yourself, right? So,
Yeah.
you don't just go and use AI, but you use AI and you use it to tweak it to your value proposition. And that's where it's at. That's where you start to make money. Now, if I could,
Yeah.
AI is, people tout it for its productivity capabilities, right? And that's
Hmm.
really where the moneymaker is its ability to enhance your productivity, augment your cognition to, bring more productive things to the table. But as a society, um, I like to think about, Henry Ford
Yeah.
and making the assembly line and how that, you know, sparred off 5-day work weeks and overtime pay. And I think, there's an opportunity here
Yeah.
in when you talk about big technology change, right? It's another technology thing, not AI being
Hmm.
brand new. The technology is now leveling up in a way where we can use it differently, and we don't just need to think about productivity and making cash. We should also be thinking about leisure, because leisure is really good for you, dude.
Yeah.
And especially when you're busting your ass every day, working 12 hours for yourself, which
Yeah.
feels great, but it's tiring. You deserve that leisure, and business owners forget, right? It's really, and I'm guilty of it every day, forgetting why I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, sure, I love when my clients are happy. I love being creative and having unique solutions. I love the challenge of providing a similar solution to different clients, but
Yeah.
differentiating it to them, right? So that
Yeah.
they have the same value that this guy got, and we're not just repeating the process. But I don't love beating myself into the ground, and because that's a recipe for disaster in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways, right? I mean, I'm a former alcoholic. I am an alcoholic, and there's some good things about that. I
Hmm.
learned a lot from the experience. I mean, and it was a painful experience for a lot of people around me, but that kind of alcoholism is a byproduct of stress and several other factors, right? And so, don't just use AI for the sake of using it. Use it smart. And then remember, right, we're not here to work our asses off. We're here to enjoy.
Yeah.
Don't work yourself into the ground,
Paul,
please.
let me ask you this. So, when you're working with AI in talking about niching down, now my audience, a lot of rural Americans, they're out in farm country. You're from Michigan, right? So originally, so
Yep.
this we talked a little bit before the show about this, and being from Michigan, Michigan's a lot of farm country. Michigan's a automotive capital of the country, right? And one of my so I was having this conversation the other day. Gene Haas Automation, right? Okay. If you really look at it, Gene Haas was an early adapter to AI process. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you really look at it in the automotive sector and doing
Mm-hmm.
this CNC machinery and all this and that, that they do. And one of my friends was telling me this. He works in Formula One racing. Okay. And he's been doing this for 30 years. He dates all the way back to the 90s, right? When he started his career. And he told me one day, he said, success is in the margins, and AI helps me identify the margins
Mm-hmm.
better than we ever could. Let me ask you this. When we're looking at the data and we're looking at our business, whether it's farming or whether it's ranching or whether you run a local bakery, how does AI help different people depending on their niche? I mean, everything's different, right?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a really phenomenal question because I mean it touches on a few things. Every AI tool is now niched down enough to where there's probably a specific tool that will solve your issue if you're willing to pay for that specificity, right?
Hmm.
And then there's also the capability for general tools to be trained slightly to accomplish the same task. So that's just really general overview. But I'll give you a good example of data being unclean. Think of dirty data like you have an Excel file and you have 10 columns in the Excel file, and the columns are named different, and everything under it maybe is unclean. It doesn't make sense. My
Hmm.
one person put their last name first and their first name last, and it's all mixed up. um, AI can clean that data for you, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and different types of AI will clean it really well. And that's a really good use case for identifying the margin, right?
Hmm.
Because most of the time, just in the process alone, a person is going to sit there. I mean, I've had 10 different Excel files up on my computer at once trying to go from file to file, or will this function work? Will that function not work? And you're just playing with it just to find comparable pieces of information just to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, right? And not apples to
Yeah.
oranges. And I mean, the simple thing there is use AI to clean it up and you
Yeah.
have apples to apples right away. You've saved yourself the 4 hours comparing the 10 Excel files, and now you have clean data. And the data could be my doors on my beehive aren't shutting fast enough for the predators of the bee, right? And we
Yeah.
know that because now we're able to get the data, receive the data. I mean, we can also collect data on things we never could before,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
literally, when you're trying to accomplish any goal, farmer, digital business owner,
Yeah.
you need to strategize for how you're going to accomplish that goal. And really, you should be doing everything to annihilate it, right? Do
Yeah.
all you can to get it done and be super single-minded like an alcoholic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Super single-minded in accomplishing that goal. And so AI in this case helps you by taking off those stupid things that you're not good at, right? That you could care less about. Use it and don't waste your time doing the shit you don't care about.
Yeah.
Do what's going to drive that home, right?
I
And
was talking with couple of friends of mine who are in the farm business now, and here where I live, we grow a lot of peanuts, right?
okay,
And I was talking with a friend of mine who's obviously, like I say, in the farming business, and he's using drones. He's using AI tools specifically for farming, right? And
yep,
this doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're a peanut farmer and you've got 200 acres, right? If you can figure out how to get 3/4 of a more acre worth of
oh yeah,
yield out of this thing is equating money. And this
yeah,
AI is, it's showing him how to get the most out of his fields, how to do proper fertilizer application, where at the end of the day, you were relying on humans to give you this data. And that human data was questionable at best,
yeah.
right?
Prone
Some
to error.
yeah,
Absolutely,
sure,
prone to error.
absolutely, absolutely. And so now he's last year we were talking about this, and it may not sound like a whole lot, but in the farm business, this is a lot. He AI helped him get close to $20,000 more
Hell yeah,
on his field, you know, just by having AI analyze this data, tell him where to make some minor changes,
Mm-hmm.
improve his processes, improve his timing, and they're using this right down to weather and to when to plant, when to fertilize, when
Yep.
to do all this different stuff that they do. And so my question is when you hear somebody that's skeptical of AI, because like I said, a huge chunk of my audience is rural. What do you say to the people out there who are skeptical of AI? Maybe they're not willing to trust it just yet.
Well, I mean, I think you gave me a really good, the same thing I tell the folks that are concerned with AI or concerned with bias or their security and using it. And you gave me something really good there. And it's literally, what is AI, right? You define it first and let people know it's not this magic wand or black box that you give your information to, and poof, on the other side, information is spit out, right? It's actually very simple, and it's only as complicated as you want to make it, right?
Yeah.
So using the farmer example, you can collect data, right? You send a drone flying over, and you have the drone collecting X amount of data,
Yeah.
and then you could do nothing with that data too, right? You could apply nothing to it. So there's
Sure.
the element, right? Like, you can use AI, you can automate 100% of your business, but you still need you to drive the value, right? You still need your interpretation, you still need your experience. And that's what I say, reverse the card, right, on AI here, because you're still the value driver. There's a reason that all of the
Yeah.
major companies in AI in that space say there needs to be a human in the loop, right? And the reason is simply because we have not only the context that we've provided the AI that it can use, but we have the experience, right? And
Yeah.
we have we're really the ones who bring it over the line. So,
Yeah.
what I tell people is, don't be scared, because it's still your problem, right? You still have to do everything you still had to do to make your money, except it's going to be a little bit easier to do it once you implement it.
Yeah. And Paul, I'll tell you, one of the interesting things about this is for myself, right? Okay. And I work with a lot of people, especially, younger people wanting to get in the media business and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And I tell them, I say, the thing is with AI, in an increasingly artificial world, being genuine, being human, being real is more important today than it ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And people always say, well, how can you be genuine, when you're using all this AI? Well, for myself, I'll give you a perfect use case here, right? Okay. It's like I say, I use Claude quite a bit. Okay. When I'm doing a blog, when I'm writing a story, something like this, I don't rely on that AI data to fact check me. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't, this data could be completely wrong. But what I use it for is an editor, somebody to
Mm-hmm.
offer me suggestions. I still go in and write the stories, write the blog post myself, but then I give it to Claude and I say, "Hey, can you edit this for me? Did I miss something? Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
potential suggestions, wording changes, whatever?" I'm using it. I used to have to pay an editor good money to do this, or my
Yep.
company, my media company used to have to pay an editor really good money to make these suggestions. Now I can use Claude for this.
Yep.
That's made my life a whole hell of a lot easier, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, think about it. That's money that you're not spending. That's money to your bottom line, just like
Yep.
that, right? I mean, so maybe you pay for a $20 a month subscription, because that's the tool that brings you the most return, right? And,
Yep.
and so that you're using it right. And you touched on a really interesting thing. Well, we're touching on it. Artificial intelligence is probably better said as augmented intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Because you're using it to augment you and what you are doing and the value that you're bringing. It's not the value itself, right? It's just a tool,
Yeah.
and the whole adage of, you give a man a hammer and every problem becomes a nail. Well, we're in that like phase of AI right now where like
Yeah.
gurus are throwing AI at the wall like spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks. And that's not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Sustainability comes when you're using it to augment your value proposition, using it to augment whatever industry you're in, to bring that data forward and help with the decision making, right? It's not
Yep.
going to go do it for you. And interesting thing. So I'm a doctoral candidate at the
Yeah.
University of Michigan, and I study business strategy and in particular digitization of businesses, right? Digital
Hmm.
transformation. And there's two things that I find interesting. The bystander effect. So, when something happens to someone and everybody stands around expecting somebody else to do something,
Yeah.
that exists in AI too, right? And when you
Hmm.
have a system of artificial intelligence agents sitting around waiting for the other one to do something, right? That's a bad problem.
Yeah.
So the point there though is your involvement is just as, if not more paramount in the entire process than the AI doing all of the grunt work for you, right? And,
Yeah.
and then the second thing I study is Dunning-Kruger, right? It's where you're basically incompetent, but you're overconfident in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And AI moderates that, right?
Yeah.
You can use AI if you're not careful. Like you've drawn the line in the sand and you've said, Claude is my editor, and Claude is enhancing my work. It's augmenting my work. And
Yeah.
you've done the right thing there, right? When people go, well, Claude is going to write this shit for me, go, right?
Yeah.
Wrong, because they don't know, right? They don't
Yeah.
understand really what they're doing, and that's a real risk.
Yeah.
It's a big risk, and
So
that also doesn't delineate you. It doesn't allow you to create that value for yourself. So don't just use it blindly.
yeah, for sure. And Paul, let me ask you this. So a lot of people who may be listening to this, and they're probably hearing of Claude for the first time, but as somebody who studies AI and for AI business practice, what is the I've used ChatGPT, Gemini, I've used Claude. For me, Claude works the best. I don't know why it works the best, but it just does. To me, Google Gemini is just it's trash. Okay, right now for me it is.
Mhm.
ChatGPT is the second best option. What is the difference between these AI models, and how do I know which one to get?
Okay, so Chat GPT, your belle of the ball, right? I mean, it's obviously most, if not everyone, has heard of it, right, and understands that it's a large language model. You basically prompt it and talk to it in English. Chat GPT is interesting because it's trained on information that has a cutoff. So ChatGPT may have been trained up to a particular date, so January 1st, right? And anything that happened after that, ChatGPT is not going to be aware of, right? In its current state, unless you push the search button or deep search or all these buttons that keep popping up on a weekly basis now for something new. Something like Claude is actually really good for coding, and it makes me think that you're very specific in your prompts, which is
Mhm.
perfect, right?
Yeah.
So ChatGPT, is a large language model you go to and you prompt wildly, and then you massage your prompts to get something you want, right?
Mhm.
Claude, if you're specific enough, is going to give you really good responses in a very similar fashion, but it's trained differently. That's all, right? Then you
Yeah.
have models like Perplexity that don't have a cutoff, and they're basically more used for their RAG models, more used for fetching data from the internet and then providing that to you with whatever context you asked it for, right? Then
Mhm.
there's even one I really like to use because of the research and the writing,
Mhm.
and I may turn you on to this if you try
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
Typeset.io.
Okay.
it I like this because it writes very well. It has different styles of writing. So I believe inside of it, you can even access Claude or GPT and choose
Mhm.
which underlying model you're communicating with. But it also has really good paraphrasing, right? So you can
Mhm.
think about like someone who writes a lot and just wants to push a button to see different
Yeah.
that thing in 10 different ways. Typeset's really good for that. And then bringing in context from research world, right? From
Mhm.
industry white papers. Typeset.io is the perfect tool to bring that information in and then mind map it for you. So let's say I'm serving a client in an industry that I'm clueless about, like I don't know, shoe manufacturing or something, right? and I need to find out what the trends are. What are the studies about this? Where's
Mhm.
that industry going? This is going to give me 60 plus research papers and the summaries of like, this is the method they did, this is their conclusion, this is why it's important. And that's huge, right? In
Yeah,
terms
huge.
of, because 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, you're Googling it and you're spending 20 hours on that.
Mhm.
Or I'm reading, I use it to study, but I'm reading the paper that I think is going to be most pertinent, right? I've automatically filtered out 59 other papers that have relevance, but I
So this
probably
is
would
a
have had
great
to read
academic
those.
tool. This is probably a great academic tool, yeah.
Perfect academic tool.
Yeah.
Perfect academic tool. Really good for writing. Um, I think those are, you mentioned it, Claude, Perplexity, Chat GPT, Typeset. Those are my four favorite.
Mhm.
And then, and I talk to them amongst themselves, right? So if I'm
Mhm.
not super confident in a Perplexity
Yeah.
answer and I need more sustenance to what the response, I'm taking that and I'm going to Claude and
Yeah.
I'm saying, build upon that answer, right?
Yeah. And and one of the things that I use AI for, obviously in the media business, right, is I can go to YouTube and I can see my analytics. And
Hmm.
I'm a very big believer in the YouTube and the Apple analytics and the Google analytics and all this.
100%.
But because it tells me something about my audience. And just a couple of years ago, I may have to hire a consultant to tell me what my audience demographic is, or what my, to really
Hmm.
take a deep dive into this, what I think the audience would want to hear. Okay. And so recently I started using AI to help me analyze, probably within the past year, analyze my audience demographics and what
Yep.
videos are hitting better, why they're hitting better. And I can literally have a conversation with Claude or Chat GPT, whatever. And I can say, okay, look, let's dive into this data. Let's look at the audience. Let's look at their age group. What are they listening to on a whole? What are they watching
Hmm.
on YouTube? What about their locations, things like that. And I can now instantly pivot to
Yeah.
that audience. And I always said, when it comes to content creation, the audience comes last, right? There's this idea that the audience comes first, but they really don't. The audience comes last. Because if you're doing what you love to do and you're doing it the way you love to do it, you're going to put that out into the market and hope that the audience loves that. But you can now use this data to craft what you love to do to make it more appealing to the audience.
That's exactly
AI
right.
helps me do this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's supporting informed decision making, right?
Yeah.
Because and you're nailing it. The analytics are being provided for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And it's to help with the gatekeeping process of YouTube, really. I mean, and
Yeah.
if you understand that and you use that for whatever platform, and
Yeah.
you tailor not who you are, right? You don't have to change you
No.
fundamentally, but you can change your content enough, right, to where you're hitting the mark. And again, it's just simply augmenting what you probably already knew, but you're informing it, right? And if you're
Yep.
not informing your decision making, well, then you're probably never going to hit the mark, you
Paul,
know?
what in the hell got you into AI? I mean, you're now studying, you're working, with the University of Michigan and working towards your doctorate and all this. What in the hell got you into AI from the corporate
Uh,
world?
so my professional career was in automotive, right? So I grew up. I love your audience is like my family, because I
Yeah.
grew up, I graduated high school with 50 kids, okay? I grew
Yeah.
up in a little podunk town called New Lothrop, Michigan. Beautiful place, lovely community, right?
Mhm.
And I was on a ranch house, basically the only farm without a farm, and
Nice.
and um and I learned something there, right? That community is very important for one, and leveraging your community is a really good thing to learn how to do. And it's not bad, right? It's not
Yeah.
bad to need somebody. It's not bad to
Yeah.
need support, right? And I mean that in a lot of ways. And I had to
Yeah.
relearn that through alcoholism too, right? It's
Mhm.
not bad to need support. You and and so on. And literally having the right mentors in the community, having them be always be forward thinking, surrounding myself with the right people, right? Doing the
Mm-hmm.
right things got me to a position where at some point in my purchasing career, I was buying really cool technologies. So about 4 years ago, I started to work for Harman International. They make the JBL
Mm-hmm.
headphones, Harman
Yeah.
Kardon, several really cool brands, and they also provide like 80% of the speakers and the digital cockpit of vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they were working on, and I took this job because it was like cool, right? I want to see what
Mm-hmm.
this is all about. They were working on at the time augmented reality heads-up displays in vehicles. And
Really?
the idea is, and I believe it in part, that one day our vehicles are just moving entertainment
Yeah. Sure.
systems, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's what they were really trying to capitalize on. And if you can imagine like a Pokemon Go for your freaking car
Yeah.
windshield, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And you see the KFC over there and you see the 7-Eleven and it's all there and you can still drive. I just thought that was so unbelievable. And the truth is, I had no freaking clue how to negotiate what that should cost, right?
Yeah.
And as I went deeper into learning about what these softwares cost, what they're actually providing, how much margin people were hiding, right? Because
Yeah.
of that discrepancy of what the buyer knows and what the seller knows. Uh, I said, well, I got to learn a lot more about it. And then you start to realize the potential, right? And as these tools became more and more accessible, I particularly found myself going to the no code and low code tools because I'll lose myself in numbers all day. I'm not. That's my wife's
Yeah.
job, right? She's the accountant's person. I'm the creative, whatever.
Yeah.
Let me jam out on the drums back there, you know. And you get into it and you start experimenting with it. And I figured out that I could create value through my experience as a buyer, as a procurement leader at different automotive organizations, that kind of rigor that comes with an automotive company, right? The
Yeah.
processes automotive goes through. I figured out that I could apply that to the process of implementing digitization in business, right? And then I said, shit, I'm a nerd. I got no hobbies, but I really like reading about this stuff. I'm really into business. I probably should try being a doctor in this, right? I probably
Yeah.
and the truth is, it's not like it was like you can snap your fingers. You got to go through and you got to put the
Yeah.
effort in, like everything. You're always rolling the snowball uphill,
Yep.
right? And now the struggle is, how do I ensure that the value that I'm bringing is up to date? Because we're seeing 30 years of technology change in 3, you know,
Yep.
and that's disruptive.
Well, how did all this lead to automations24.com? How did this come about? Tell me about that.
Oh, good question. I mean, a year ago, I found myself literally a year ago, 2 days on April 1st, I found myself requiring a job, right? I had a great paying job at Harman, and they were downsizing. They called it calibrating, right? I
Yeah.
was recalibrated. And, and reality set in, right? For the second time in my life, I was calibrated out of General Motors with 2,000 other people in 2019, 2018, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
And really, regardless of however well your year-end review is and everything, right? And it kicked me in the nuts, man.
Yeah.
It was a straight kick in the nuts. The second time, what the hell am I doing wrong? And I had this kind of this revelation to myself that, well, maybe I'm just trying to play in the wrong area, right?
Yeah.
Maybe maybe my value is better served elsewhere. And I started to apply myself and took advantage of contract opportunities, right?
Yeah.
These things that are like, we only need you for 3 months, but we want to do this. And you learn to upskill. Really, you learn to say, okay, I can make that happen. And then you figure out how to make it happen. And you learn to live with the anxiety that comes with not knowing what the hell you're doing for a moment, right?
Yep.
Because let's be honest. I mean, every tool has a learning curve.
Hmm.
Every job has a learning curve. Experience does matter, right? And
Yep.
there's so many things that you go through life still figuring out, right? I'm today years old when I learned this stuff, and
Yep.
I mean, I'm literally still learning that it's okay to mold yourself, daily to be what you want, right? And you're
Hmm.
not you're you're a being that's moving, right? You're something that's changing the world, and you yourself are changing. And so I took all that by the balls and said, let's go. Talk
Well,
to the
and
wife, right? And you go, I'm going to put it all on me now. I don't want to find myself in a position ever again where I've done everything that I think is right, right? And I feel
yeah,
justified for myself. And I just find myself kicked to the curb. You can't do anything about that, right? And there's always going to be the situation where you have zero control over it. But
yeah.
we basically decided as a couple that we're going to be damned if we do or damned if we don't. We might as, if not me, then who, right? We might
Hmm.
as well do it. And so
Hmm.
far, that's been a bigger learning experience and a more lovely experience than everything, anything I've ever done,
Well, I
because
love your mission statement with this A24. I love this. Your mission statement is empowering businesses to achieve operational excellence through innovative, code free automation solutions that streamline workflows and boost efficiencies. I love this because it's very straightforward. But now I have a question. How do you do that for businesses?
Sure, sure. So it's a discovery process, right? The process of implementing AI is exactly that, a process. You have to start it and you have to take it all the way to completion for it to actually be successful. And the first thing that you do in that process is you identify the low-hanging fruit, right? And when I think of automations or a business, right, and automations in business, there could
Hmm.
be thousands of things to be automated, but you don't need to automate everything. So you
Yeah.
identify where that person is spending the most time on the thing they hate the most, right?
Yeah.
And where is it not adding value? Where what they're doing, right? And where is what they're doing adding the most value? And you're basically now funneling your activity, right? Their activity into those high profile, low hanging fruit
Hmm.
processes that you can switch as soon as possible. And in
Yeah.
some cases, you can literally automate your process in a day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
editing, yeah, you basically,
Yep.
I'm sure when you were needing the services of an editor, it took a couple days at least,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. Yep.
You know, and you
Totally.
you you did you went through that all without
Yeah.
an expert, right? And that's the
Yeah.
point of my book is you don't freaking need me to come in and tell you how to do your business, right? I can do I have a team that handles the really complex technical implementation. And I
Hmm.
got that team because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to spread the word on
That's right.
how cool this is, how
Yeah.
effective this is, right? And pound that sucker home.
Yeah.
So, right, it's anybody can do this, right? Just the
Yep.
process of self-reflection, reflecting on your business, finding the lowest hanging fruit with the simplest changes, and
Yeah.
you're gonna start making impacts, and you build on that.
Paul, one of the this is an interesting point you make because for me, I'm a media guy. I've been in the media business for 20 years. One of the things that I absolutely hate, believe it or not, is content creation. I hate the process of editing and of messing with
Hmm.
all of this stuff, like creating shorts, editing
Yep.
podcast, all this stuff, right? And it's so funny because I started looking around at this and I said, man, look at all this time that I'm taking to make YouTube videos and to make shorts and to make TikTok and
Hmm.
Instagram and all this stuff. I absolutely hate this. And so I started looking around for tools, okay, to to answer my problem, to give you going back to your leisure point,
Yeah.
right? And so I did. I went into Claude, okay, and I said, "Hey, Claude, this is what I'm doing. This is what I hate doing. This is what I really despise doing, and I need something that's going to help me automate my system to where I don't have to spend 10 hours a day editing and creating
Yep.
content and sub content off of a 45-minute long video. So Claude spit out like 4 or 5 different things, tools
Hmm.
that I could use. And so it was on me to go back and do the research on this and say, okay, well, this is the one that applies most to me and can make me more efficient. So I ended up trying a couple of them. I came to this Riverside, which is what we're recording this on now. I can get on here, I can record the podcast, I can do everything I need to do. At the end of it, I'll hit a button. It will do most of the editing for me. It will create shorts for me. It'll create reels for me out of this content. Sometimes I need to go back and make minor changes, like color grading or,
Yeah.
editing, whatever. But for the most part, the content is pretty good. Okay. I kind of like it, which then allows me more time to go have a coffee, sit back, relax, and prepare to make the content, prepare for the
Yeah.
interviews. For me, Riverside helps do that. I'm not saying it's for everybody, and this is not a plug for them, but it's not for everybody, but it's for me. And I still had to have that human intelligence to say, you know what, here's 4, 5, 6 options. Let's go through it. Let's take a look at
Yep.
this and see what works best for me in my situation. I think that's the power of AI.
Yeah. You got it. You have to. Well, you recognized one thing. You recognized through sheer displeasure with what you're doing, right?
Yep.
You recognize that that's not where your value is too. And exactly what you've done is allowed yourself not just more time to have the coffee, but you're thinking of it exactly how the business owner should be and exactly how I would tell a business owner to think of it. Now you have freed up that sure you're still spending an hour doing it, right? Tweaking the
Yeah.
minor things, but that 10 other hours you can now get on a podcast and bring value to your audience, right? And that's exactly what you're doing this for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that far more often, and that's really what business is. The essence of this is getting to the point where you can do what you like to do, where you're making the money, what you're good at, right? It's like the
Yeah.
Stoic thing. If you're going to be a baker, bake bread, bake the best friggin' bread you can bake, man.
Yeah.
So I think of it like these tools allow me to be the best automations co-founder I can possibly be because I can focus solely on being an automations co-founder. You can be a
Yeah.
podcast host, blogger, everything that where you're adding your value. You can do more of that.
Yeah, 100%. And so let me ask you this, Paul. What is your book? Who is your book written for?
So my book is Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine. It's written for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small businesses, teams of 10, teams of 5. And what it is an overview of 10 tools, 10 plus tools
Hmm.
that exist today that are either completely free or minimal cost that I highly encourage everyone go experiment with the curiosity of my 3-year-old and 4-year-old daughters, right? You don't have to stick your finger in the outlet, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
be curious about it. And these tools, and it's a general instruction on how to start playing with them, how to get used to it, and what their general purpose is for. Why PyTorch is good for this. Why Hugging Face is good for this type of choice. And I also give some pointers like how to negotiate. Say none of these tools work for you, and you're a bigger company and you have to go talk to Microsoft or Oracle and try to get
Hmm.
your value out of that tool. Like Gemini, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm with you. Gemini's not my favorite tool.
Yeah. But it
Maybe it's going
probably
to get
works for somebody, you
yeah,
know?
it works. Some people I know use it a lot in
Yeah.
back end note taking, back end so on, right? But it's that thing where if you need to negotiate, there's also a set of things that I've learned negotiating technology I have no clue about, right? I've learned how to just get down and understand the brass tacks of that particular tech. So I've tried to exchange that knowledge with folks too, and it's really about that. Get out there, be curious, learn these tools that are available, and I'm not a tech guy. I mean, I am, but I'm not, right? I'm more the practical. Let's go play in the dirt, throw a dirt clog
Yeah.
in the dirt field kind of guy. And so I wrote it like that, right? I wrote it with my personality and my humor to not be overly techie because I don't care to know about that shit.
Yeah.
I want to know, is this a tool I'm interested in or not? What's its function, and how do I need to get? How much is it going to
Yeah.
cost me? Should I need to use it?
Paul, that's kind of how I am. I look at I am not a tech guy in the least, not at all. And for me, it was like, you know what? I don't need to know how this shit works. I just need to know, does it work and how much is it going to cost?
Yeah,
You
right.
know, and and I think this is the beauty of this is we can play around with this stuff. We can, tinker with it, right? And so one last question here I got for you, Paul, and this has been a great conversation because I think it's really important for people like you and I with our mindset of just going and playing in the sandbox, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Just regular old blue collar guys talking about this really important thing because this makes it to where the average Joe can go out there, play with AI, figure out what
Hmm.
works for him. And I love the way that you wrote this book with that in mind is, you know what, this is not for the techie, this is for the average person. But I have a question here for you. Let's talk about the kind of democratization of
Hmm.
AI, right? Okay. That tends to lead that AI is for everyone. Is AI for everyone or is AI still really specific? I guess maybe to clarify that question a little bit, is AI useful for everyone, or is it just there's just some people that just should not use it?
Well,
That's a
it's
loaded
a
question, isn't it?
no. I mean, you're that's a really tough question because I think like any tool, I'll stick to stoicism here. Like any tool, it doesn't have any inherent virtue, right?
Mhm.
And how you use that tool is what gives that tool its virtue or its bias or whatever. And in that regards, it's not for everybody because you can do a lot of shitty shit with
Mhm.
AI too, right? I mean,
Yeah,
mean malicious stuff.
yeah,
If you're trying to do that, you can, right? So
yeah.
I would highly discourage those types of people from
Sure.
using it.
Yeah.
But there's also the idea that I'm a plumber. I don't need AI, right? No,
Mhm.
that's wrong. Because your services, right, aren't just plumbing. That's where you're making your money, right? Solving the issue at wherever whatever the issue is, right? AI can help you get to the point where you can do more jobs, right?
Mhm.
So I would venture to say it can be useful for
Yeah.
anybody in the right context, right? And a free version can be useful for everybody. And when you're curious and you're okay to play in the sandbox, if you don't believe there's a use, you're probably going to find one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Paul, and I think too that there was this one question that keeps coming up when I talk with people about AI, right? Okay. And people ask me this all the time. They say, you have all of these for a long time, and I'll use this as an example. For a long time, I was using vidIQ, right?
Hmm.
And I was paying, into this whole system of vidIQ and all this and that, And then I realized rather quickly that Claude, a tool that I'm already paying for and that I'm already using, can do exactly for me what vidIQ is. So why am I paying a subscription fee for now
Hmm.
vidIQ and all this other stuff that I'm doing when I can really just pay the $20 a month for Claude, right?
Yep.
If I want to put in just a little bit more work. At the end of the day, my point here is AI, one tool, $20 a month or whatever it is, ended up saving me hundreds of bucks a month because I could now cancel subscriptions that really just offered me nothing,
Hmm.
nothing more than one system could do. And so now with, you know, for instance, Claude or Chat GPT, whatever you want to use, you can do keyword research. You can do all
Yep.
this stuff, and if you're a plumber, to go back to the sandbox analogy, if you're a plumber you're not just, and you own that business, you're not just a plumber, you're a marketer,
Yep.
you're all sorts of stuff, right?
Yep. You wear 100 hats.
100
Absolutely.
hats, right? Sure. If you're a farmer, it can help you figure out new ways to get your product in front of people to
Yeah.
maximize
Farm is a
revenue.
business, right? 100%. 100%. You're wearing
100%.
more than just the farm hat, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, well, Paul, where can folks learn more about you, man? What's the .coms? Tell me about it, man.
Sure, sure. You can learn more about the business, Automations24 at www.automations24.com. And you can learn more about me or reach out to me, please. I mean, I love these conversations. And Matt,
Yeah.
you've had some stumping questions, but really good. I appreciate that. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. And
Yeah,
it's LinkedIn /Paul-Malott, Malott. And I respond to anybody who sends me a message, even the folks that are sending the generic AI messages, right?
yeah, for sure. And your book, this book, Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine, they can find that on Amazon, right?
Yep,
Is
yep,
that
on Amazon. It's also for a period of time. I swear to God, it was in a Barnes and Noble in Alaska somewhere. I think they
really
were
no
testing. Yeah,
kidding?
I swear to
Really?
God, somewhere
Yeah.
somewhere in Alaska there was a Barnes and Noble that put one book out there. It's
No
probably sold
kidding.
now if you're out in Alaska there. But
Really?
yeah, you can find the digital version on Amazon and
Yeah.
also paperback, hardcover, so on.
That's great. Paul, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on here and teaching us a little bit about this AI and making it blue collar for us, because I think
Gotta love
too
it, my
many
man.
times too many times people I think hear AI and they're just freaked out by it and they think, you know what, this is, for scam artists and white collar con men,
Hmm.
right? And AI really is a tool for the everyman, for
Yeah,
the every business owner, So Paul, I
it
really
is.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure, man. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks a lot, and reach out to Paul. Like I say, I think he's got some great insights, and Paul is a blue collar guy. He's one of us, right? He's not just another tech guy out there trying to make a quick buck, on some AI things. So reach out to him. Really, I think his Automations24, and at the very least, check out his book, The Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine. You find that on Amazon. I'll link that in the description. Once again, Paul, thanks for joining us, man.
Peace and love, man. Appreciate you,
Take care,
man.
brother. Thanks, man. All right, so we are done with that. Paul, that's a great conversation, man. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, I love it, man. Great questions, dude. I really love it, dude. Actually, I'm glad you brought up your. I feel at home with your audience. Okay,
Yeah.
I do. I mean, man, this is like I grew up with hardworking fucking farmers. The way that I
Yeah.
make